With the Death Watch in charge of Mandalore, the former Sith Maul and his brother Savage Opress are arrested in their own plans to take over the planet, but break out to defeat the leader Viszla and claim the army for themselves. With the power of Mandalore in his hands, Maul cleverly uses the former ruler Duchess Satine to lure his old foe Jedi Master Obi-Wan Kenobi, and he begins to grow in power, with the death of Satine brutally hurting the Jedi. But the increase in his power arrived at a cost, as he had been sensed by his old master Darth Sidious. The Sith Lord travelled from Coruscant and landed by the palace to find the Zabraks, to demonstrate who the real Sith was. Sidious toyed with his opponents, stabbing Savage as the Nightsister Magic flowed out of his body, and Maul was fueled by hate. The Zabrak proved to be no match for Sidious, and he spent the rest of his life trying to defeat Sidious and Obi-Wan, but to no avail. But what if he had tried to revive Savage instead of pursuing Sidious and Obi-Wan? Would he finally succeed? As you're going to find out, the change of objective could have changed his life also. On his journey to retrieve a Sith holocron, Maul looked at his navigational computer and saw the image of a sleek looking ship on his radar, which belonged to that of the Inquisitor, the 8th brother. Maul dived down into the outskirts of the ancient Sith temple, docking his ship in the middle of the trees. As he ventured through to the superweapon, he glanced up to the skies and caught sight of a rebel ship, so decided he would allow them to make their move, jumping into the underground tunnels. Maul's plan is a success, as young Ezra Bridger dropped into Maul's level from the old battlefield, and the Zabrak lures Ezra to the dark side. After they retrieve the Sith holocron, the two Force users unite with the skeptical rebels, and Maul does not trust Ezra enough to take the holocron to the temple's obelisk, with his brother's life on the line, and together they ascend away from the rebels to the top. Maul senses the arriving Vader, and just manages to activate the power within, before rolling to the side of the cliff face. Vader's approach to the temple's summit is cut short, as he is blasted off of the top of his TIE Advanced starfighter and into the ground below with the rebels, as Maul and Ezra manage to get away in Maul's ship. On the remains of the planet, Ahsoka had been the first to get up and started to lift the rubble from crushing the rebels, when she saw the prosthetic fist of Vader punch through the rocks. Ahsoka reluctantly walked to the Sith and sliced his control panel to prevent any further trouble, as she took care of the others whilst waiting for Hera Syndulla. The ghost eventually arrives, and Ahsoka leaves her old master, unable to bring herself to kill him, and begin the chase to rescue Ezra from the darkness of Maul. The chase did not take a large amount of time, as the Zabrak knew from Ezra that Kanan had a holocron, and manipulated his apprentice to take it back from the rebels. Maul guided Ezra to an Imperial TIE fighter, and orders him to track the rebel ship using his connection to them. Ezra does not require any form of tracking, as he knew the others had agreed to meet on Atollon, and landed shortly after them. Ezra struggled to hide the dark side that had arisen from the exposure to the Sith holocron, but managed to find a path to the ghost, then to Kanan's quarters and his holocron. The rebels had been gathering for their next mission, and had not noticed the disappearance of Ezra until it had taken off, as he left to join Maul. Together, Ezra and Maul fused the holocrons, and Maul saw that he had to return to Dathomir, whilst Ezra had visions of the twin suns on Tatooine. Maul firstly had to retrieve his fallen brother, and remembered that he had not seen it on Mandalore after his escape from Stygion Prime, so he decided to go to the base of Lord Vader on Mustafar. As they are pursued by the rebels, the planet is notably not fortified, as the Empire is still searching for its enforcer on the Emperor's orders. Using the dark side to breach the first line of defences, they enter a strange room and find a number of Vader's victims dangling in force fields, and as they walk through the dimly lit room, they see Savage. Maul and Ezra knock the cage of the totally deceased Zabrak, and soon alarms begin to scream around them. The Force users find the area locked from all angles, so they use their combined might to punch a hole in one of the weakened walls, and to the outside. There Ezra has to battle the Imperial troopers, as Maul carries his brother, and shifts the lava into the troops, giving them the path to their escape. Now it was time for Maul to revive his brother, just as he had been planning for. The former Sith and Ezra travelled in Maul's ship through to his home planet, but as they leave hyperspace, they are met by an unwelcome sight. an Imperial fleet homed into view, and as they were continuing to be pursued by the rebels, they had to face the Empire. Maul did not want to be dragged in, but he decided they could lure the rebels into the hands of the Empire and manage to free themselves if they were clever enough, so allowed the primary Imperial Star Destroyer to lure them in. Ezra is curious as to the plan of the Zabrak, and as the rebel freighter begins to disappear, the plan looks to have failed. Ezra is about to question him when alarms begin to go off, and the voice of the naval commander ordered for all of their ships to chase the ghost freighter. From the hangar, the Imperial troopers moved into their respective stations, so Maul and Ezra ran to their ship before the Imperial forces noticed their escape and left for Dathomir's surface. Back aboard the Ghost, the Phoenix Squadron and Rex had been tracking Maul and Ezra, but upon seeing them disappear into the Imperial fleet, Kanan had been quick to realise that it had been a trap. Hera steers them out of the range of the ships, but the size of the Imperial fleet could not be avoided, even with her considerable piloting skills, and they are drawn into the hangar previously occupied by Maul's cornered starfighter. All of the Imperial troopers surround their ship, and they are all then placed in cells, awaiting further orders from the Emperor, believing that Vader had died on Malachor. In their separate cells, it is only Rex who was making any inroads for an escape, as he had hidden a comlink in his foot and used it to send a coded transmission to Ahsoka. The former Jedi receives the pleas of her clone friend and travels in a rebel fighter alone, but as she approached the coordinates given to her by Rex, she detects a strange cloud in the Force. Ahsoka chooses not to be captured like the rebels, and entering one of the small Imperial ships undetected, she takes an Imperial TIE fighter with a pilot and is able to make it through to the main destroyer to find the prisoners. But as they navigate through the network of corridors in the detention area, Ahsoka's sense of unease heightens, and she ignites her blades in time to find the rebuilt Vader. The Sith apprentice was in no mood to grant the same mercy that Ahsoka had granted him on Malachor, and lunged in her direction as she ordered the others to escape, then dueled her old master. Vader demanded to know the location of Maul, as Palpatine had felt the rise in threat levels from his old apprentice, and wanted to be dispensed of the nuisance. Ahsoka did not know the fate of Maul, and before he could unleash his anger on her, she leapt backwards into an Imperial TIE fighter, then fired at the roof above Vader, giving her time to get out and reunite with the rebels on Chopper Base. On Dathomir, Maul had arrived in the remnants of the Nightsister village, and placed Savage on a stone tablet. Using the knowledge he had gained from Talzin, he performs a complex ritual that leaves the air in a green mist, and Ezra shields himself as a monster emerges. Savage looked at his brother Maul, and his eyes narrowed in pursuit of his revenge on Sidious, before glancing at Ezra. The revived Night Brother asks if they should kill him, but Maul uses the Nightsister Magic on the planet to perform one last ritual to combine their minds. Maul is able to discover the location of Obi-Wan, and leaves Ezra to suffer on the planet alone as they travel to Tatooine. Ezra felt a great surge of rage run through him as Maul's ship left the planet, and he also felt ashamed that he had been manipulated, but he needed to get off the planet and warn Obi-Wan of the danger. The Jedi could not see any sign of a ship and trudged through the village and felt a nearby building calling to him. There he spots a number of useless relics, but as he approaches the Darksaber beneath the altar, he is launched back into a pile of more artifacts. Maul had laid a trap for the Jedi, but he had failed to take a broken comlink, and Ezra easily repaired it to reach Chopper Base. It was time to save Obi-Wan. On Atalon, the Phoenix Squadron had reunited with Ahsoka, and the former Jedi begins to lay out a plan to retrieve Ezra, when they receive a signal from the planet of Dathomir. Kanan recognises the hidden code to be one he had shared with his Padawan, and alongside the others, enter the Ghost to rescue Ezra. As they approach the planet, the previously present Imperial fleet had been diverted by Vader, and they dive quickly to the red mist. Ezra greeted them from the ground and is about to enter their ship when Sabine feels they should stay a little longer. Entering the building in which Ezra had found the broken comlink, Sabine spots the legendary Darksaber and picks it up in her hand. Ezra is amazed that she had not been affected by the curse upon it until he is told of his Mandalorian history, and then he alerts them that Obi-Wan would be in danger. Ahsoka immediately runs back to the ship and warns Senator Organa of Alderaan, who relays the message to the Jedi Master and those close to Tatooine, but he instructs them to go and protect him from Maul. On the sands of the desert planet, Maul and Savage had trekked through a vast area of inhospitable sand, fueled by the hate for Obi-Wan. In the distance, they finally spot the small fire of the Jedi Master through the night and crept up to it from separate angles, then surrounded the Jedi. Obi-Wan is not intimidated despite his surprise at seeing the second Zabrak, and continues to crouch by the fire until both sets of lightsabers ignited. Obi-Wan summons his own blade when Savage stamps his blade on the floor and knocks everyone off of their feet and into the sands. The Jedi Master had become buried, and as he heard the roars of the Tusken Raiders approaching him, he athletically leapt up and retreated from the angry chasing pack to his hut. After retrieving his limited possessions, he summoned a tornado of sand into Maul and Savage, giving him a chance to run to the last homestead. The Jedi barged his way into the last home and took Luke from the confused and scared Beru and Owen, leaving through the rear exit as the hunting enemies took the place apart. Obi-Wan was not out of danger yet, as the speeder that he had known the Lars had owned was currently being repaired, and he had no transport to the nearest civilization until a sound from above came to his rescue. Ezra beckoned Obi-Wan and Luke to run to the ramp of the Ghost, and they hop away from the burning Lars home. For the first time, Luke had been introduced to one of the cells of the rebellion, and Ahsoka could not bear to look at the child of Anakin Skywalker, even more horrified that he still did not know the truth. The freighter returns to their base once again, and Obi-Wan begins to teach Luke about the Force along with Ahsoka, who was still uncomfortable. Back on Tatooine, Maul and Savage had been completely disgusted that their best chance to kill the Jedi had gotten away, and they trudge back to their ship. But as they approach it, the gauntlet starfighter is shot down by a squadron of Imperial TIE fighters, and from the smoke, the TIE Advance shuttle of Darth Vader landed softly on the sand. The Zabraks prepared their lightsabers, as Vader shrugged off the annoying grains from his foot and lifted the broken ship of Maul into the brothers, which Savage held back with his outstretched hand. Vader continued to project various large pieces of debris, but Maul dodged them to clash blades with the Sith apprentice. Vader parried aggressively against Maul and began to push him back as Savage arrived to aid him. The brothers proved to be worthy opponents, but Vader begins to get the upper hand as he pushes them into a valley. Maul realises that they could not win by fighting and pulls a ship from above down towards them, then flew out to an Imperial Star Destroyer. Eventually approaching the turrets, they carefully dodge them all and begin the next rampage, brutally defeating all of the Imperial troopers in their path before they could lift their blasters, and calmly ascended to the bridge. Maul force pushed all of the naval officers into the walls, then force choked the commander to his death, assuming control of the bridge. Maul is able to access the Imperial database to discover the coordinates of the recently constructed Death Star, and this was obviously where Sidious was located. As if to confirm their suspicions, the hologram of Maul's old master appeared and ordered all of the Imperial fleet to return to the Death Star immediately. This time, they would complete their revenge or die. Maul stood at the head of the bridge and listened to the communications passing between the other ships as they all converge on the terrifying space station. Before leaving for the hangar, Maul ensures to relay their location to the rebel base, and they enter separate fighters to the Death Star. The Zabraks use all of their stealth to descend into one of the less occupied hangar bays. The Imperial troopers form a guard of honour, and Maul realises they cannot stay still for long as Vader's shuttle approached them, so they quietly leapt out and scuttled behind some supply crates. There they witness a thoroughly angry Vader stomp out of his ship, but bow to greet the previously hidden Emperor. Palpatine was not concerned by Vader's failure to apprehend Maul, as he had anticipated the Zabrak moving to him, but as Vader mentioned the appearance of Savage, Sidious's eyes narrowed into unrivaled levels of fury. Maul led Savage into the empty corridors and into an area where they could observe the airspace as the rebel ships finally formed in the distance. Maul and Savage waited patiently until the station started to shake and become fully operational as they aimed to leave, but they were stopped by Palpatine. If Vader could not destroy the Zabraks, he would be forced to complete the task himself, and he launched a lightning attack at Savage. Maul blocked her using his lightsaber, but they were beginning to fold under the power until they cut a hole in the ceiling and jumped to the upper level. Palpatine was forced to abandon his chase as rebel ships begin their attack after bypassing through the Imperial blockade via Maul's abandoned Star Destroyer, and Vader led the squadron of Imperial fighters in pursuit of the rebel X-Wing starfighters. But these starfighters have been a distraction as the primary assault led by Hera Syndulla fired into the defences of the battle station and dropped off his combatants. Obi-Wan Kenobi, Ahsoka Tano and Luke Skywalker were supported by Ezra and Kanan as they tackled the Imperial security forces. The light side users are also assisted by a group of rebel officers, and very soon they split up to disable the tractor beam and begin the internal destruction of the Death Star. As Obi-Wan scurried along the level 6 corridor to the tractor beam, he had to hide behind a corner as he saw that Palpatine was dueling Maul and Savage across the narrow beams. It was obvious that the Emperor continued to toy with his opponents, casually pushing Savage off of the edge, and Obi-Wan decides to save him by holding him with the Force. Maul is able to pull him back to the surface, giving the Jedi Master more time as he deactivates the power grid, then transmits the location of the Sith to the rebels. The Jedi and Ahsoka, however, were occupied by Vader, who had destroyed the first wave of rebel pilots before being recalled by Palpatine. The Sith calmly deflected most of their strikes before slowly realising that Luke was in fact his son, and he asked him to join him and defeat the Emperor. Luke refused and helped Ahsoka fight a towering machine, and although his technique was erratic, Luke's intense determination pushed Vader into retreating into a turbolift. Ahsoka and Luke follow him as Kanan and Ezra battle the Imperial reinforcements in the hangar and find Vader run to another lift to the throne room. As the lift doors open, their ears begin to ring from Palpatine's cackles as he threw Maul and Savage around the room, then sneered at the new arrivals. Palpatine projected a lightning attack, and Luke and Ahsoka writhed in pain until the lift doors opened again and out leapt Obi-Wan and Yoda. The Grand Master had received the pleas of Senator Organa and had arrived in time to block the attack as Maul helped his brother to his feet, then jumped at Palpatine. The Emperor let out a huge roar and shook everything in the room, but the Zabraks were not deterred and plunged their lightsabers into the Sith Lord before the inevitable explosion stopped the battle. Later on, Kanan and Ezra ascended the lift to the throne room and looked at the combatants scattered across the floor. To their relief, all of the Sith had died other than Vader, who was heavily injured, and Yoda finally got up. The Grand Master lifted the Jedi Ahsoka and Vader out of the room and to the rebel cruiser, watching as the Death Star imploded. With the help of Luke, Vader managed to avoid the death sentence from the New Republic and began to move away from the dark side. The Rebel Alliance under Senator Organa and Mon Mothma never forgot the sacrifice made by Maul and Savage. That is it for What If Darth Maul Revived his brother. If you enjoyed this What If, please like this video, turn on that notification bell, click that subscribe button on this channel, as well as on my other channel What If Films. And as always, leave a comment on what if you'd all like to see next, and how I can improve my videos. Thank you all very much for watching, and see you next time.